Hello, listeners. This is Alba West,
And I'm Christie Matherne.
and we are so happy to reintroduce ourselves today as High Desert Voices.
We decided to change the name because we understand that Western Colorado Writers podcast is a mouthful. And High Desert Voices sounds a whole lot better to both of us. So we thought it might sound better to everyone out there, too.
Awesome. Yeah, so today we're interviewing, like I said, romantic paranormal fantasy author P.K. Stuart.
She's the author of the Time's End series, which has 3 books: Inside the Tree Line, Learning to Fly, and Our Tangled Stars. The 4th book in the series is available on Amazon on July 22nd this year, and it's called Dreams of Fire. Thank you for being here today, Pam.
Yeah,
Thanks.
welcome to the show.
I appreciate being invited.
Yeah. Okay, well, what does a day in the life of P.K. Stuart look like?
If I'm doing it right, they don't all look the same.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of a goal-oriented list maker, so most of them start with sitting down with my tea and writing my daily bullet journal. And then I try and work in some exercise and some of the things that I'm supposed to do.
Movement is good.
Yeah. And most of my writing and stuff tends to happen afternoon and evening. I'm not one of those get up at 4 in the morning and write kind of people. My brain isn't even functioning then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I need at least 3 cups of coffee before, and a rough scribbling journal.
Yes.
And then after that, I can maybe do the things that you do. I would like my life to look like that one day.
Yeah.
To just wake up, plan things, move around.
Sounds nice,
That sounds
yeah.
dreamy.
Yes. And the bullet journal, for the day comes from the bullet journal for the week, which came from the goal setting for the year.
Oh, wow.
So
That is legit.
it does give you this sort of autopilot thing to do.
Do you work aside from writing?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Nope.
That's nice.
It is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I don't have to do anything, which, when you say you'd like your day to look like mine, that's kind of what it takes.
No obligation. One day.
Yes.
So you write under an alias, and to me, it sounds like a really difficult thing to choose an alias, to choose a place for any notoriety that you might gain. How do you pick?
Well, first of all, I probably wouldn't do that now. At the time, it really felt important to have sort of a separate persona. Maybe that my grandchildren not read what I write, that kind of thing. And so what I came up with was my grandmother always had a book in her hands. She was always reading some piece of fiction. And so I just used my initials and her maiden name.
Okay.
So, it was pretty simple for me. That just made sense.
Okay, so you didn't pull from any crazy obscure character in a famous novel or anything like that. Okay,
Nothing,
I was
nothing
overthinking
that
it.
exciting.
I gotcha. Well, I think you kind of answered this a little bit earlier. What is your process for writing? Do you have any quirky routines to set, writing mood? Or does it kind of just come naturally to just have your routine and then you just get inspired later in the day?
Well, obviously, my creative brain turns on later in the day. Through these novels, I think it's something people have to play with, what works for them. Through writing the first 3 novels, I finally came up with a process of writing readers, more writing, editing. I do have a process pretty well lined out. I'm somebody who sits down to do a rough draft. I haven't touched the story itself. I've developed every character first. That's sort of instead of plotting, I am somebody that can write a 40,000-word biography for a character to make sure I understand him inside and out before I ever start writing the story. And so that's a big part of my process. And then I find that once I know the characters inside and out, I really have very little to do with the story. I know where it's going to start. I know where I want it to end. And I'm never aware till it happens of how the characters are going to get there.
Wow. So you kind of create the characters first, and then you act as the character. What would they do in this situation?
It just writes itself at that point. I can sit down, like RMFW used to have this thing called Novel-Rama, which was focus sessions for 4 days that you just cranked out as many
And
words
this is
as
Rocky
you
Mountain
could.
Fiction
Yeah,
Writers?
sorry,
Okay.
Rocky Mountain
Yeah.
Fiction Writers. And in that 4 days, I can just let my brain loose and crank out 50 or 60,000 words in a story. It's going to require a whole...
Wait, 4 days?
Yeah.
What?
It's going to require a lot of editing and a lot of work after. But it's really, and I
A
think
super
it's-
rough draft is what
It's
that
a
is.
super
Yeah.
rough draft, but the entire story is done. A lot of the dialogue, a lot of what's going to go on, and it's mostly just listening to my characters tell the story. I'm just dictating really fast.
That sounds like a superpower, honestly. It sounds like,
Yeah, it's like you're channeling.
yeah.
I really think it's about learning to relax your brain that
Oh,
much
totally.
and just let it go.
So you're definitely not what our friend Jim Van Pelt would call a pantser.
I am so a pantser.
You are a pantser.
Pantsers are seat-of-their-pants writers
Yeah.
as opposed to plotters.
Okay, so you
I've
don't
done the
you don't
character work.
plot. It just seems like you
No.
do so much planning before.
It's
That's-
a different kind of
it's a
planning.
different
it's not
kind of
actually
cancer.
planning.
There's no plot.
Okay.
I never write out a plot or an outline or anything like that. I'm a total pantser.
Has that always worked for you? Or has there been a time where maybe, things might have been easier if I had a little bit of a outline?
This fourth book, I kind of questioned that because it's been really difficult to write. But when it came down to it, it was that I hadn't done the work on the characters. Once I really nailed down one of the protagonists better, and I do this woo-woo thing where I actually talk to them. I'll say, I'm really having trouble with this. What am I not understanding? And then I just sit and listen for
I'm sorry.
the answer.
Okay, let me rewind for a second. You sit and talk to your character?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've heard of the interviewing the characters thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not your typical, what color are your eyes? It's just saying, what am I not getting about you? What's different? What have I got wrong? And they always tell me.
Gosh, it
Okay,
sounds like
yeah.
you have a very respectful relationship with
Yeah.
your characters.
I do.
I've never thought about
No,
just
I like
asking them.
No, it's true. Tell me. I'd probably be a little bit more demanding, I think. Like, reveal yourself to me,
or just like the illusion that you're in control of it.
Oh.
That's really what
now
I'm
we're
talking
getting
about.
too deep. We're getting too
It goes very deep.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Well, I have that in the rest of my life, but it's not something I seem to need with writing. So
Lucky.
Yeah.
So something I love about interviewing authors is learning about all the different paths they walk to get to the path of writing. Can you tell us how your path to writing started and how you ended up with a 4-novel series under your belt in less than 10 years after you started?
Well, I guess the very beginning is my little sister has been writing for a couple of decades, maybe longer. And so I had read some of her stuff. I think that kind of is a gift in that it tells you, well, if your baby sister can do it, so can you, kind of thing.
Oh, that confidence that comes with, yeah.
You don't, it was
we all push each other. Right?
But I'd never really thought about doing it myself. And then I don't remember why I was driving back from Salt Lake, but I'm coming over the pass, and this story just started telling itself in my head. And it kept getting more and more involved. At first you're thinking, well, I can remember this, but it got more and more involved, and it just kept building on itself to where I had to stop at the top of the pass. And I was writing notes on the back of receipts. I didn't have any paper with me. It was
It's like a true artist, right?
It was
Anywhere you
pre
go.
cell phone notes,
Wow.
And so I sat up there for about 30 minutes and got as much of it down as I could, and then tucked it away in a drawer and didn't really think about it, and haven't written that story yet. But
Oh, so that's not written yet.
no, that one's not. That one's still,
It's
you know,
in
a
the drawer.
possibility. Yes,
Cool.
but it got my brain going, and then Vicki, the sister I was talking about, was president of Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers in 2017, and invited me to their conference simply because Diana Gabaldon was the keynote speaker, and I was in love with her writing and everything Outlander, and so I was like, sure. And because I was there, I ended up taking some of the classes, and you're also, you know, hanging out in the bar with nothing but writers at night.
That's fun.
Yes,
It can be fun.
It's great. And I think it was as much about how possible it all became at that first conference, because you realized, you know, I've been reading fiction since I was in third grade, and those authors are kind of like on this pedestal. You're just in awe of authors. And being at that conference, you kind of went, wow, these are just weird, quirky people like me.
Yeah.
If they can do this, so can I, you know. And I went home from that conference and started writing this series.
Wow. Like right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that definitely speaks to the writing community, huh?
Well, it does.
Like the power.
And Vicki also invited me to her critique group. She didn't realize I'd been even thinking about writing, so she immediately got me involved in her critique group. She invited me to start going to these quarterly retreats with a bunch of her writer friends up in Fairplay every year. And all of that, you know, just fed into the desire to do this. I was still working then, so it wasn't quite as easy, but
Yeah, but you make it work. When you have a passion, you'll fit it into your
Yeah.
schedule
Yeah.
no matter what. It kind of forces its way into your life, actually, if you're getting those receipts out and, you know.
it does.
Well, what do I do
does.
with this?
Yeah.
Apparently it goes on some
It was,
receipts.
yeah, it was basically this is where the juice is coming from now. This is what I want to do. So
Yeah.
So your Times End series is set in a fantasticized version of Park County. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose that location and what role it plays in your series?
well, like I said, those writing retreats are all in Fairplay, and I'm a bit of a nature lover, and the books are very nature centric. So, you know, I get out and walk every day when we're up there and do some things like that. The other part of it that just made sense for Fairplay, and it's even a line in one of the books, I don't know whether it was number 1 or number 2, was, "We're not the weirdest thing in Fairplay." It's this incredibly eclectic, diverse culture up there. I've always said you have to be half a bubble off to live in Fairplay full time.
There's a couple cities like that in Colorado.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, oh.
But I love it up there. And we write at a place called the Hand Hotel, which became the Platt Hotel.
That's the old building.
Yeah.
I used to live in
Yeah.
Conifer, like sort of
yeah.
right there.
Yeah. It's this big old 2-story cool hotel that eventually, you know, so one of the main characters runs that hotel as a front for the fact that she's actually just a keeper for all of these time-traveling magical druid people.
So cool.
And but she runs the hotel. Her daughter runs the restaurant down the street, and I just know that area so well at this point, and I know that hotel so well, and it's sort of my writing home. So it just kind of all fell into place there.
Came very naturally to just write about what you know, right?
Yeah, and you can definitely get very into setting when you know it as intimately as that too.
Yeah, and I guess if you have a question or you're held up, you can actually just go to Fairplay.
Oh, right.
I do. Yes.
And actually step along where your characters
Yeah.
are stepping. I feel like that would give you a different
It
grounding.
does. You know, when I talk about where Kai's cabin is, I have an absolute picture in my brain of which
pretty
mountain
cool.
that's on and that kind of thing, you know.
Oh,
I
that's
add
fun.
a few creeks where I meet him and some things like that, but
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, we need a creek here.
We do, because, really cool places, cool cabins need a creek running in front of them. So.
Definitely.
The cool part about building your own worlds is that you can put a creek wherever you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. On the topic of world building, did you base your world off of an existing fantasy world, or are you, this is my own world with its own laws?
It's my own.
Mm-hmm.
The premise, if I can do this without getting really political, kind of came from, in what was going on in 2016, 17. The whole future world that they're traveling from is me saying, what's the worst of our current culture? And what does that look like in 200 years? What have we created if that's the direction we continue to move in? And so that world is based on that.
Gotcha.
Most of the story takes place in, starting in 2020, and is very much, just adding magic and some things like that, the time travel and the magic, to the current culture of that time.
Okay. I just cracked open your first book in your series. I didn't quite get to the end, but I read enough to want to ask you a question about the hero's journey, because there were some sprinkling themes starting, and I could tell that perhaps you were influenced by the concept of the hero's journey. Can you just talk about how that concept informed or influenced your writing, and whether or not you stuck to it all the way through?
I don't think you can write the genre I write without having some element of that in it. It's almost always going to be about somebody taking on some impossible task, and usually pretty reluctantly, maybe even
super reluctantly
pissed about it, not wanting this on them. And then their character arc tends to be how they evolve, how they grow, how they become more capable of pulling that off. And hopefully, at least the fiction I read, I'm a very happily ever after kind of person, they do achieve what it is they set out to do.
Oh, no spoilers.
But they are very, they are a completely different person by the end. They have evolved to become the person that, like I say, can pull off whatever this big task is. So I don't think you can, part of my journey has been learning all of that. I went from a business background to deciding I was going to write fiction. And so it's a skill like anything else that you spend a lot of time reading books about writing, taking online courses about writing, just, workshops, conferences, all those kinds of things. And so much of that is around the hero's journey that I'm sure it's in my writing. It's not something I make a concerted effort to follow.
Mm-hmm. So it is the story of us anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the hero's journey stories, and it, as of this recording, it was a couple of days ago that was Star Wars Day.
Yes.
Yesterday, yeah. So I had it on my mind.
I was going to say yesterday.
I had it on my mind.
Yes.
Just, the hero's journey. It is one of my favorite stories like that.
I think a lot of the best fiction is.
Oh, it's so good. It's a recipe that works, and you can always throw in your own spices, or, not go through it to the
and
tear it
can
apart.
Be a heroine's journey as easily as a hero's journey.
Exactly.
It's just about that evolution of the human soul, sort of thing.
Right. It's a common vein in all of us, pretty much.
Yep. If we're doing it right, anyway.
Yeah.
Would you ever be open to having your books be made into movies? Is that something that you've put somewhere? You're like, some authors say absolutely not.
It's not a goal or anything, but I don't, I may, again, probably from that business background, I don't turn down money. So,
Yeah, I'm with you.
There you go.
They asked,
so I'm pretty sure I would say yes.
who's the actor as the Indiana Jones? Do you know?
Huh?
The actor that does Indiana Jones?
Oh, Harrison Ford?
Harrison Ford. It was in an interview recently, and they said, hey, don't you feel a little embarrassed about some of the roles that you're taking on? I think it was Hulk, where he's like the villain version of Hulk. And he's like, I do, and then I get paid. And
then, wipe your hands of it.
Right. I mean, that's smart.
You can always do wonderful things with the money.
Right.
In order to.
Yeah, like,
I think that's important,
right,
too.
yeah, definitely.
Could be like Nicolas Cage and build
Oh
yourself
my
a
gosh.
pyramid in the oldest cemetery.
Wait, is that something he did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, he
my
did that.
gosh.
He built himself a
haven't heard
pyramid.
that either.
I have not
haven't
heard that.
either.
I've seen it.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
those
That
kinds
sounds
of
like
things
something
are
you
not
would
my
do.
goals. Yeah.
Anyway, small detour. I got one more question for you. When you handed me a copy of your book a couple of weeks ago at the Western Colorado Writers Forum Happy Hour, it got passed around the table very quickly. Everybody wanted to look at it. Also, everybody thought it was my book. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
And everybody wanted to see it because it was very pretty and very well put together, and it looks like a good book. And I wanted to ask you if you could tell us about your approach to self-publishing, because it is a self-published book. Mm-hmm. You published it on Amazon, and I thought you had a very interesting take on self-publishing.
Well, first of all, I like the term indie published better than self-published. I think there's a bit of a... There's also the self-published that used to exist, which was you paid somebody, $600 to publish your novel
there is
for
different.
you.
Yeah.
Indie publishing is definitely a business model. It's about somebody who says, I can take on all the bits and pieces that a publisher would do for me. Mm-hmm. And again, because of that business background, I've been, managing contracts and subcontracts and things like that my whole life. So what is harder for a lot of writers is the easy part for me. So to go out and contract a cover artist, for instance, it started with just searching different websites and Facebook pages and all kinds of things to find things I wanted. I made the mistake of hiring the first one with a very specific picture in my own mind, and I am not a visual arts person. And so when I let go of those reins and just said, here's what the book is about, she came up with those stories. And this is a woman in Spain that I just happened to see her website and like some of her work and said, can you do this? And she's done all 5 of those covers, and she's just wonderful. But the editing's the same way, and it's trial and error. I went through different publishers in the first 2, and then found a woman that we really work well together, who does the editing for me. I'm lucky enough to have another sister, not the writer, but the biochemist, is just an amazing developmental editor. I don't need anybody for that. She's like me. She's been reading fiction her whole life, and she is great at finding the plot holes, finding the little inconsistencies.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a great support team. Just
I do.
Immediate family.
Yeah.
And I do, yes. And cheerleaders, too.
Yeah.
Many cheerleaders.
That helps a lot.
But anyway, I think that journey, too, would be different for every writer, what you're comfortable with. I knew after also, I've got some RMFW friends that are really successful indie published authors, so you've got that example in front of you. And then you start looking at traditional publishing paths and the number of writers I'm around who have been writing for 20 years and submitting to agents and, going through that whole process. Yeah. And I'm just not patient enough for that. There's just, in my opinion, it's like, the minute the world became digitized, it's just too easy to do many of these things ourselves that we used to pay people a lot of money for because we didn't have the capabilities. The formatting that you saw inside the book is a program called Atticus.
Okay.
It's inexpensive software that you
He's making a mental list over here.
download.
I know.
That you download your Word document into, and it has a number of scene breaks you can choose from, or you can develop your own and plug it in
wow.
there.
Yeah.
It tells you what the margins need to be for paperback, what they need to be for Kindle. It creates the EPUB file for Kindle and the PDF file for that most print versions want. So, I mean, all of that becomes really easy to do, too.
Wow.
But I was an IT person. So when I say super easy,
Right.
I'm assuming it's as easy.
You're like, of course,
for
I don't have to write a
everybody else.
program.
Yeah. I mean, not sponsored by Atticus, but it sounds like a really good source of help for writers. What do you call it?
Yeah.
A good reference.
A resource.
A resource.
A resource.
Yes,
It sounds like
and
a
I
really good
had,
resource.
and I'm always happy to pass it along. I had some great resources when I was getting started. So, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you say like the difference between self-publishing and indie publishing, I understand where you're coming from, but what you are doing sounds way more like self-publishing. Like you are,
you are.
like you are doing every bit,
Every single
like you are
step of
hiring the
way.
artist, you picking and
Yes.
hiring the artist. Like it's really
Well, and all that indie stands for is independently published. So as
True.
opposed to traditional published, you're independently publishing.
Yeah, it's just really inspiring to me like you just took all of the tasks in your own hands and
Yeah.
we're like, I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
this, and this.
I can do the books. I can,
And
all
it
of
turned out
those are
really
skills.
beautiful. Like it's a book. Like you wouldn't look twice at it. You wouldn't think it was any different than any other
I
book.
think covers are so important. I can work in Canva. I can do quite a bit with graphics, but it's completely different when you've got an artist putting that together for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we support artists here, not AI, right?
Yes, we're not
It's an
doing it.
ongoing conversation. But,
Although I might say, another great tip for all writers is that the blurb on the back of those books is harder than writing the book.
oh,
And there are now some AI tools for that I am not afraid to use.
Wait,
definitely.
getting the blurbs? Or
writing the blurbs.
Yeah, can
writing
you
the blurbs.
elaborate on that a
you're
little
talking
bit?
about the
Like-
summary. Okay.
Well, it's not even a summary. It's a marketing tool.
True.
It's the
It's
thing-
marketing copy.
It's
is what it
it's
is.
marketing copy,
Yeah.
which I don't think all of our brains do very well. And
It's
I think you can ask almost any writer what they hate the most, and blurbs are going to be somewhere in the top 3.
Yeah.
yeah. If you got to use AI for that, go for it. It's
I don't feel bad about it at all.
you can fix. You
I'm not
can
sure
fix the
anybody's
passive
checking.
language.
Yep.
You can do that yourself, but have it spit it out for you. Oh my gosh. Well, do you have any more questions, Alba?
I don't think so. I think this has been very. I'm still just like in shock a little bit. It is a lot of work, especially you started while you were working, and so I would say like, oh yeah, if I wasn't working, I could do something. I'm working, and I don't know that I can fit all that in.
Nope.
Just in getting an artist, there's so many scammers online right now. You just click the wrong person, and send me over some money, and all so that. Each step has its own difficulties that you probably had to get through.
Although I haven't had the other thing that is also true of this industry and all of the people I've hired is there is a world of absolutely wonderful editors, artists. I mean, so you ask around a little bit, part of it is that business thing again. I'm not going to hire an editor without a sample edit and without references and without a contract. And, there's all of those pieces that if you're going to spend that much money, you better have in place.
Right.
That business background again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it probably makes you a little better than
Yeah.
the average person at sniffing out like people who are maybe trying to lead you
It could
somewhere.
be. Could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question. HDLO.
Hidlo.
Okay. I was like, at first, the first time
Thank
I
you
saw it,
for
I was
asking
like,
that.
oh, okay, independently published. Like, it could be, Halo. I'm like, because I've seen books that have grammar or spelling errors, and then I was like, okay. And I thought again, I was like, okay, this is not a mistake. This is the name. So Hidlo. What's
when you're writing fantasy, you got to throw a little bit.
Oh,
of it.
totally.
I don't have a lot of it, but there's got to be a few made up terms.
Oh yeah.
The other one that keeps throwing my editor off is that I try, just like my time travelers have trouble with the idioms of this time a lot. They need to bring a few with them.
Oh, totally.
Right? And so one that I love is that Patya and Amy have this way they make fun of each other because they call each other daffodils. And what that means to them is you're a wimp.
Right.
Or you're being a wimp.
Yeah.
And my editor's always like, I don't understand this term. And I'm like, it's
not
an idiom. You're not supposed. It doesn't have a literal meaning.
The only way you understand it is if you read that first part where they explains it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think contextually you
Yeah.
end up understanding what it is, but she wants me to change it every time.
A daffodil.
Did you feel like did you always know it was going to be romance, or did it kind of just work its way in there? Like, are you first romance centered?
No, I think I'm fantasy centered.
Okay.
But I'm also happily ever after centered. And I think a little romance just enhances just about everything.
100%.
So,
Of course.
so hence the genre is romantic fantasy, not fantasy romance.
Right.
Which I had to learn that.
Yeah.
That part too. But so yeah, there's a romance in each book. But those also I hope I'm using effectively as vehicles for the evolution of the people involved. They are not easy romances. They are not without their own necessary growth in order to bring them about.
I appreciate that. Like it's in your average action movie, it's like somebody copied and pasted the romance between all the like it's just it's just thrown in there. It's like gratuitous.
That can be about great critique partners too. I started out with 2 critique partners that would just call you on every little thing like that. Yeah, like wasn't that convenient?
Well, look at that. Oh, that's good. It's good to have people that call you out like that, though, because how else are you going to ever know?
Yep.
Oh, well, thanks again for...
One more
you have one more?
Yeah, so, okay. I'm not sure that this will make the final cut, just depending on, I've heard that your book is spicy. Have you heard that term before?
Yes.
Have you heard spicy talk on TikTok?
No, I have not.
Book talk?
TikTok is the place I drew the line with social media.
Oh, fair. That's very fair.
You got to draw it somewhere because otherwise you
Right.
can fill your day with it.
Just
and that's where I
sucked in,
drew
yeah.
mine.
That's fair.
So no TikTok. And to tell you the truth, second behind blurb writing is writing open door love scenes. So you don't find a lot of them in my books. There's a lot of romance. There's not a lot of sex. But there's some because there are readers out there that just simply seem to want that.
It's what it seems
romances.
like. What it seems like
Yeah.
online that are like, oh, the only reason I'm reading this is because of it. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I throw it in there. It's actually when I'm, as a reader, it tends to be the part I skip. So, or at least,
Are they at least
I don't
like-
need every term.
Are they at least like fun to write?
No, they're really difficult. They're really difficult.
Trying to get the logistics and everything.
What's easier for me is dialogue, is the back and forth between people. That's the part I enjoy both as a reader and as a writer.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I would probably find that difficult to write.
Oh, 100%. Especially if your family is proofreading what you're doing. I mean,
Well,
I mean, your sister is different than your grandkids.
I mean,
yes,
fair.
yes. I
but-
haven't handed them to my grandkids. And I do have some very favorite writers that, like I said, I skip that a lot as a reader, but they do a great job of it. And so don't think I don't pull those out. And I have them. There's this great
Inspiration.
program called ReadWise that lets you highlight things in Kindles and then makes notes for you on
kind
all
of
of that.
offloads them a little.
And so, and so I have a whole category of those scenes that I can go to ReadWise and go, all right, I'm just going to read sex scenes today.
All right, today is the unfortunate day.
You have to prepare yourself.
And that kind of gets your brain going on those kinds of things.
Inspo.
Oh God, I think we need to get you back on to just talk about your list of tools that you use.
Oh,
It's
totally.
funny because I'm doing it. I have a group that I belong to that is only part of us are writers, but I'm doing a little presentation in 2 days on nothing but tools. You know, because I bring these things up and they're like, okay, we
let us know.
want you to do this.
Yeah, it sounds like you have it down to a science.
Well, I have what's working for me right now. Yeah, I think you add them as you go along.
Where is it that you're doing this presentation?
It's a private community, so I don't think you could get to it. It's called Fearless Living Academy.
Okay, cool.
Got it. No, that's cool.
Keep that in mind, and you might toss that idea by Melody.
Okay.
For a writer's night, I think a lot of people would be interested in that.
100%.
Okay.
If you don't turn down money, there's money involved in this. I hear you don't turn down money.
Well, she's not an idiot, of course. All
right, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
That was it.
All right. Thank you again, Pam, for being here. It's been a joy to talk to you. Everyone out there can find the Times End series on Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. And the 4th book is out on Amazon on July 22nd. You can find Pam online at pkstuart.com. That's the letter P, the letter K, and STUART.com. High Desert Voices is the official podcast of the Western Colorado Writers Forum, a nonprofit organization based in Grand Junction, Colorado. The forum's mission is to foster a rich and diverse writing community on Colorado's western slope that invites participation from diverse cultures, customs, and life experiences. The forum hosts Writers' Night presentations at the Grand Junction Center for the Arts on the first Tuesday of every month, where local and national writers give presentations on their craft. Sign up for the forum's free newsletter and listen to all our podcast episodes for free at westerncoloradowriters.org.